One. Hello, Poetry Salon cast listeners, and hello to our viewers on YouTube. I am Trisha Faye Hefner. I am founder of the Poetry Salon, and today I get to welcome Heidi Seaborn to the Poetry Salon cast. Heidi, thank you for being here. I am going to try to, yep, there we go. I found it. I'm going to read your shortened bio, which is as follows. Heidi Seaborn is executive editor of the Adroit Journal and winner of the Missouri Review Editors Prize in Poetry. Her third book of poetry, Tick, 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 is forthcoming in 2025 from Cornerstone Press. Heidi is the author of three award-winning books, Chapbooks of Poetry and Insomniac Slumber Party with Marilyn Monroe, Give a Girl Chaos, and Bite Marks. Recent work in Agni, Blackbird, Coppernickel, Financial Times, Image, Poetry Northwest, Rattle, Terrain.org, The Slowdown, and elsewhere. Heidi holds degrees from Stanford and NYU, and you can find out more at HeidiSeabornPoet.com. Heidi, it's such a pleasure to finally get to talk with you one on one. Thank
Hello.
you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you, Trisha, and thank you to the Poetry Salon community for having me. I'm so happy.
Yeah, and we got in touch with you because of our wonderful Robbie Nestor, who is poet, and I'm going to call her the booking agent for the Poetry Salon cast now, and also with words with you. One question that I have for you that I've wondered about for a long time is Seaborn your original given name, or did you
No,
come up with that?
I did not come up with it. I married it.
It just
I,
seems like such a perfect poet name.
I know. It's the late David Wagner, when I was just coming back into poetry in 2016, so it's been 10 years. And the late David Wagner was one of my first teachers. And he said, "Oh, you have a perfect poet name." And I went, "Oh, good." Like done, like check.
So curious, do you know what the origin of that name is? Like what the nationality is or backstory?
Yeah, it's British. But ironically, my husband runs a marina.
Wow. I
Yeah, like
just
that it
wow.
was in the, I mean, it's a small marina that's been in the family for generations. So
That that must be like in the blood. So I mean, I know so many random bits of information, but once I remember getting really curious about how last names come to be, and it a lot of them come from like either where you live
or
or
what you
where
did.
or
Yeah.
what you do. Yeah, I mean, and
Yeah,
now we
like
inherit them.
Taylor or yeah, like Taylor or
So it must have been that in his
Copper, Cooper.
family lineage, he must have family who worked
Maybe.
the seas, and now he
Maybe does it
so
too.
that is so perfect. All right, well, that's the really important question that we have to ask you. And now that my curiosity has been satisfied, we can probably spend a little time talking about poetry. I would love to invite you to read um, the poem that you selected to get us started. And you said before we hit the record button that this is kind of the poem that started
It is.
your most recent book, right? Tick, tick, tick.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right. So yeah,
Now,
why don't we hear
I need
that?
to tell you, it's a really long poem, so I'm just going to read a selection of it.
Perfect. And I'm gonna put myself on mute in case, there's a cat meowing or whatever. It won't interfere with your reading of the poem. So as soon as you're ready, just
Yeah,
get
just
going. Oh,
okay.
and I am going to do this because some people are visual learners, myself included. I'm going to pull up the poem so we can kind of read along with you.
Great. So it's continuum, and it's a poem that I started writing January 1st of 2024. Um, and I couldn't stop writing it because I woke up that day and realized that the world had changed over the last, what, 4 years, that so much had happened. And I had to capture it. And so that's the genesis of this poem. And it does cover a lot of landscape. So I'll just move us along a little bit and then we can dive in and talk about it. Continuum for the many dead in this residence of woe, and me holding a family wedding photo. And should I just keep going and you want to just jump along? Okay. January 1st, 2020. When the weather turns anxious, the bright cheek of autumn grayed in a chartreuse-lit lab, in a gold-strafed bureau, men construe a new world. The lifted bow of another year hovers over the strings. The season freezes in a glass of bourbon I drink as the balloons fall and the burlesque queen sings, Auld Lang Syne, my friends. And we kiss another decade in the millennium, crawling across the continuum. Then, winter spring 2020, Beauverste I was skiing old limbs to tree runs, bracing the Wyoming cold. Hadn't I seen a moose loose beneath the lift? Such good luck. A votre santé. A sniffle and a line dance in the cowboy bar at night. Forgive me, my love, we were silly. The tower clock warning, ringing its snow-covered hands, so cold, so cold. A white kimono fastening over our hearts, the blue-lipped kiss of the Yukiona on wintered earth. I slept in that month and the next, until the mackerel dragged the sea lions inland, until the lilacs flurried. I'd forgotten to rush out the door, forgotten the crush, as if the fortune teller had thrown the major arcana card, as if the white horse had thrown the skeleton. So much change in my pocket. No one takes it anymore. We all know someone, we said. You or the other. Immune sounds like commune, but it's not the same. I had not thought death had undone so many, wrote Eliot, on a walk, the parade I joined twice daily, faces cloistered, bright eyes, following the river of death downstream. I waved to Rick the bookseller, to Claudia, another poet. My words churned beneath the line of cars cruising Beach Drive. There is nowhere to go, and everywhere. I spade my garden after the hyacinths die, drop in seeds that promise bees and butterflies. The carcass of winter turned over while I was sleeping, revealing a portal. Who would we greet there in our pajamas? While PBS gives nightly tribute to the dead, we mourn through a box at a box, grief squared. What are my odds? Singing Chai si togli il rispere from my balcony. In the heat of the moment, I think to escape prayer, not my thing. Yet, as the months engrave their weary hours, as thousands become millions, become you and others, as the world turns inward like a lazy eye and then ruptures, my meditations become laments, then petitions, my piety, my hypocrisy. And maybe I'll pause there. Does that make sense?
I mean, there's plenty to talk about in that first
Yeah, there
movement
is.
alone. So yes, yeah, let's dig in a little bit here. And Heidi, in this poem, and I know one of the others, at least one of the others of yours I've heard, there are references to Eliot, T.S.
Mm.
Eliot. And I wonder, tell me a little bit about what draws you to him and his influence on your writing, if you would.
Yeah. So as I said, I started writing this poem, and it was something that I just, every day I was going at it. It's 15 pages long, and it takes us up. until sort of the spring of 2024. But then there's a coda that is really on the continuum, because as it turns out, we are on the continuum of this this administration. And so as I was writing, someplace along the way, I thought of Eliot's The Wasteland, and I went back and I read it, and what was interesting to me in the reading of it is how pertinent it was to the time that we're living in, that he was living in a similar time in
Mm-hmm.
terms of um, you know, being living during war, the rise of fascism, a global pandemic. Even he writes, I mean, as you dig into his writing, he's talking about, the industrialization and the pollution in the air and all of that. It's
Yes.
really it's
Yeah.
really quite interesting. And so I started to think about this poem in particular as being very much in conversation with him, with the wasteland, with the sort of the scope of what he was trying to put forward in that poem. Um, he wrote that over years. For me, this came very quick. But it also has some of the hallmarks of his work, particularly The Wasteland. And that was at first not intentional and then
Mm-hmm.
became intentional. So I went to him and then I started pulling lines from Eliot and they're in here. But then I started realizing, I sort of call them as my fellow travelers on this journey, which were, I mean, I've got lyrics from various different musicians. I've got a lot of I have Vivaldi's lines from Vivaldi's sonnets. He wrote four sonnets that are the same as the seasons, so Vivaldi's Four Seasons.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's well, you got a sense there's some foreign language, so the Italian phrase that was in the part that I read was what the Italians were singing on their balconies during the pandemic. Um, so
And
there's just
we're talking about this pandemic, and by
Yes, we're
this
talking about this
pandemic I
pandemic.
mean
So yeah, that's what yeah, so the section I just read is the beginning of the pandemic. And then my poem goes on to um, has sort of the next, has various different sections. So the next one is kind of winter and then the following spring, which is the continuation of the pandemic, but then we have the insurrection. We've got the war with Ukraine. Russia's invasion in Ukraine,
yeah.
the overturn of Roe v. Wade, um, the the Israel Gaza conflict, and
There's really
and then
quite.
the return of Trump, and then the return of Trump. So
Yep. Yep.
all there.
There's a cornucopia here, and I realize for people who are watching on YouTube, I'm like, I'm smiling and everything, and I realize, like, we're talking about a very serious subject matter. I'm just excited I get to talk to someone about T.S. Eliot. And that's kind of always the conundrum I find myself in when I'm doing poetry salon cast, because there's the subject matter of the poems, which can sometimes be quite serious. And then there's the excitement of, like, someone else read Eliot and wants to talk about him, which is
Yeah,
so,
yeah, I
juicy and
know.
exciting for me as a poet. So I
Oh,
just want to be
yay.
very clear what that's about. Um, and it is so pertinent. I find it so interesting. You know, my husband and I were talking the other night about what's going on in the world these days, and he said something about poetry and, like, well, is really is I can't remember what he said to bring it up, but I was like, well, T.S. Eliot, what wrote The Wasteland? Uh, and during the Industrial Revolution. And, and then so we started this conversation, but, it does seem to be still very, very relevant today. And your poem, and then also some of the other ones I've heard, you read at the reading the other night really reminded me how pertinent it is. Um, and I believe you said that you started this poem in 2024, but it seems to be about things that are happening
Yeah.
um, prior to 2024, the pandemic and everything else. So I'm curious
Right.
what
I was
triggered.
trying to capture that, sort of looking at what's occurred since New Year's of 2020, right? So
Yeah,
January 1st, 2020, and then all that happened in a short period of time. Um, and I thought I've got to capture it because this is just unreal. And then, of course, it's continued to be unreal. Um, so I was worried that this poem, this book, um, which I felt was very urgent to the moment, needed to come out quickly. And as it turned out, it's evergreen,
yeah,
sadly.
yeah. That's something I've also dealt with and talking with people in poetry salon. When we write about political things, I'm always advising like, hey, you want to think about 100 years from now, will people in Iceland understand what this is? If it's too much about the moment, about American politics and who you don't like at this particular moment, will people 100 years from now in a foreign country get it?
Right.
And yet at the same time, like as long as you're not naming specific names that hopefully will become irrelevant soon, like the subject matter does seem to keep going on and does keep being
Yeah.
continue to be evergreen, as you said. So yeah, I thank you for saying that. I'm wondering, do you feel like there's something maybe different about our time? Um, or maybe is there something we can learn from T.S. Eliot's work and the people who lived through the Industrial Revolution that maybe moves us forward in any way?
You know, I I think I think we do need to write the moment, and I feel
Mhm.
that he did that. And people don't really think about his work that way. They don't think about it as being um, political, really.
Yeah.
I don't know that he even intended it to be political from what I've read, but it is, and it may not have been received that way. It was kind of received as this great literary gift to the world, and yet it's highly political.
Yeah.
He's really trying to capture the the part of society. I mean, they lived in an incredibly kind of class-driven society, which we think we don't live in, but of course we do
I
now
don't
that we've
think that
gotten.
way. I think we're all, if we did, if anyone was thinking that way, I think lately we've
Yeah,
really started
it's
talking
over.
about it
Yeah.
more overtly. Yeah. Um, I'm
Yeah,
actually thinking of
exactly.
yeah, I'm thinking of John Lennon's song Working Class Hero, where it's just like, no, I feel he was talking about class division, but it wasn't. Yeah, you think you're also something in classless and free, but you're all a bunch of fucking peasants as far as I can see. That's the line that jumps out at me when you say that. So like, yeah, some people maybe are thinking we're in a classless society, but I think we're all kind of changing our mind on that lately,
Yeah,
especially.
yeah. It's becoming pretty evident. Um,
Yeah. Well, and you say that, people don't necessarily think of T.S. Eliot as being political. And of course, you can say, as somebody did, the personal is political, and everything is political. So in some ways, he's writing about culture and he's writing about what is going on in a changing culture. And you don't have to ascribe that to what's going on in the politics, but obviously the two are very, very connected.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I think also, I mean, from a writing style, when I first read The Wasteland, I was in high school, and then I read it
mhm.
again in college, and then I forgot about it, and then I picked it up when I was writing this poem 2 years ago, and um, you realize, I mean, it's so sort of deeply embroidered with
Yeah.
reference, and um, I love sort of reading the notes to The Wasteland. They're as interesting, I think, as the poem. And and so, I mean, even this poem has, the back of the book has uh, one, two, like 4 or 5 pages of notes just for it. Yeah, 5 pages of notes,
That's
um, which was fun. I mean, it was fun to kind of, as I was going, just sort of making little notes on the side so I wouldn't forget, and then going back and capturing them.
Yeah, you're kind of previewing well, and I told you I wanted to talk about this in our interview because I noticed this with a number of your poems. There's a lot of what I would say very interesting factual um little gems or interesting scientific tidbits and things. But you've also got the references to quotes from Eliot and phrases and so forth. And I am, again, one of the things that kind of comes up in workshops sometimes is when you are including so much backstory content, not backstory, but you know, so many things that need a footnote. Some people are very wary of that. They're like, oh, I don't want to drive my reader to a dictionary or make them look anything up. I'm wondering what are your thoughts on that? When is it appropriate to use it? When is it not?
Well, I mean, the thing I always hear in workshop is that you do it at the top of the poem so people can look it up. If it's in the title or it's in the first line, so you don't lose them midway. I don't know. I think our readers are really smart, and they're and hopefully you write something that people want to dig in, and it works on the surface, and then it works if you dig in a bit deeper.
Hmm.
And that's my goal as a poet, is to write something that you don't have to scurry and go find the reference to. But if you do, it opens up a bunch of different windows.
Yeah, and of course, one of the things we're always saying is, well, hey, we've all got our computers on our phones right now. So if you've got some extra textual material, people uh will be able to look it up quite easily. So, you're not taxing people too much, really, in many ways, I think. I think my other question here, and because this is covering quite a lot of material that we I guess maybe this is a more personal question. Has it always felt this way that we're dealing with so much upheaval all at once? Or have I just been not paying attention? Just, from the poet's perspective, has it always been like this?
Wow. No.
Okay,
No. I mean, yes, there
okay.
have been moments. I mean, I've been alive for a while here. I mean, there have been, but I don't think it in a way where it feels so intrusive to the dailiness of our lives. um, as it does now. And and I see people making decisions. Should I have children?
Yes.
Like career decisions, like they're making decisions based on the external world. Um,
Hmm.
and that I don't think has happened in the past. Oh
Yeah,
no.
I mean obviously like I turned 42 a couple days ago. So by some standards I'm a baby according to some people
Happy
I know, and
birthday.
thank you. According to my own feeling, I'm like ancient and I know everything now. Although like, to paraphrase Socrates, mainly I just know how much I don't know and have no hope
Hmm.
of ever knowing. So, I do realize like all of these are very much the unanswerable questions, which is why I like poetry, because it's the place where we go to answer the or talk about the unanswerable questions together, I think. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, if I ask that question, I'm not expecting that you necessarily have like factual data, but just a general perception. And my perception has been it's never been quite this dire. And I think the pandemic really made everyone, I mean, it was the biggest thing that affected everyone's lives that I'm aware
Yeah,
of in the last
yeah,
42 years.
yeah. It's
So,
I know. It's interesting, to go back and then start writing through right this section here and the one that follows has is partly about the pandemic as well. And um in many ways we've moved on, but we haven't. I mean, the residue of it is still in all of our daily lives, the things that have not returned
yeah.
to quote unquote normal, whatever normal is. Yeah,
Well, we're all living with this. I mean, first of all, I think we're also all living with a collective grief that
yeah, yeah,
some people would say we have not really processed. Which I think shows up in your poem because as you said, you're starting this in 2024, but it's reflecting on this period that has been, we could argue maybe since 2016, or maybe the roots go back
yeah,
even deeper, but
yeah.
certainly we
Deeper,
all
yeah,
got to be really cognizant of them in 2020. So we've all been kind of dealing with this,
yeah,
but not really dealing with it for a while.
yeah.
Living with it, but sort of like shoving it under the rug. So I'm curious in your writing of this piece, was there anything you said or discovered that maybe you weren't expecting to say or discover?
Yeah, I mean the little stanza that you have up there
Mhm.
is I I think was the surprise not just for writing Continuum, this long poem, but the book that then came out of that's then sort of tick tick tick, which came out of writing that. It's it started with Continuum and then I wrote the rest of the book. Um, and both of them are sort of this journey into what do I believe in. So if I look at the stanza that's right on the screen, it's in the heat of the moment, I think to escape prayer, not my thing. And yet, right? And so the first poem in the book is called Axidy, which means spiritual sloth. And so the real journey of Tick, Tick, Tick is through this clear-eyed look at where we are, and then how do we respond to this moment? How do
Yeah.
we sustain hope? How do we love through it? And how do we find faith, whatever form that takes? And sort of move from kind of the spiritual slot, the a place of laxity to a place of prayer was a very interesting journey for me. And so yeah, it came out in this section of the poem, and then it's throughout the whole book.
Yeah. Say that word again, axidy.
Laxity. It's
I
Latin.
love it when poems drive me to the dictionary. And you know, I also have to tell you, I didn't realize I was still sharing the screen because I had clicked the button that enlarge our faces. So I've been looking at our faces, and I didn't realize
Oh,
until you said, "Oh, that stanza that you have up, that it was still up." So I wonder with you too, well, they should be focusing on the words of the poem just as much as on our beautiful faces. So it shows that we have our priorities straight here. I think that we are here to focus on the poems. Speaking of which, I wanted to also ask you about the title here. I have my guesses about the title Tick Tick Tick, but do you want to say a little bit about why that's the title of the book?
yeah. I had originally I was calling it Crawling Across the Continuum, which is right out of that poem. And then some poet friends of mine said, we hate that title. And so and so I said, well, it has to do with time. I mean, it's about sort of the steady tick, 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 that sort of sense of like urgency. And, um, you think about the doomsday clock, you think about, like that. Um, and so I said, it's got to be like tick, 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 and so I said, okay, that's it.
Yeah.
Um, and then to spell it with, it's spelled TIC in my title. Could be TICK sometimes. I mean, most people spell tick, tick, tick with a K. I chose not to. Some of it is visual, but it also, to me, created that sort of sense of sort of the nervous tick as well.
Hmm. Yeah.
So it's, yeah, yeah, it's, and the ticks that get under your skin and the,
Yes.
like all of it, like all of it.
I have to out myself here. Sometimes people think that I know my poetry business so well, and my sister is great at telling the truth and saying, like, Trisha, you always pretend you know so much more than you do. I don't know T.S.
Like a
Eliot's The
true sister.
Wasteland. Yeah, oh no, no, she'll be the truth teller. We have she is the truth teller in the family, and I'm the enforcer. So we have our goals, we have our roles with each other. But I will out myself and say, uh I do love T.S. Eliot, and I probably have read his poem Rhapsody on a Windy Night 100 times, and I love teaching that.
Oh,
Um, I don't know The Wasteland enough to really talk about it in much depth. The general idea. And obviously the title, The Wasteland, does give us an idea of what we're talking
yeah.
about.
Yeah.
But I
I mean,
had
it was
read.
really kind of him. It was him just talking about this, where he was living and what he was living through. And he references them. I mean, you think about it, was he started it, he started thinking about it, and then he started writing it between the wars.
Mhm.
An American living in Britain amongst all that death,
Yeah.
so much death, and the war ends in 1918, and the pandemic, quote unquote, the Spanish flu, then
Mhm.
hits. And so, I mean, there's just death everywhere.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is sort of the main impulse of the wasteland, is that, but it's also the rise of an industrial society, um, the continued sort of class, but then the degradation of some of the cultural norms. I mean, it's really interesting. When you dig in, you're just like, oh, wow. Yeah, we've been here before. Hmm.
Yeah, all of these things are actually quite prevalent, and it's challenging not to like directly address politics. But just the other night, Bernie Sanders gave this speech about how he thinks, and some other people are telling him that AI is going to have more of an impact on the world more quickly than the whole of the Industrial Revolution had. So you think about what the Industrial Revolution did, um, and didn't do, or the the gains. We can call some of the things gains depending on what you're looking at, and then the cost of those gains.
Yeah. Mhm.
Um, it was very dramatic and really changed society very quickly. And now we may go through another kind of I mean, we have with the technology boom. Like we've
We already
already
had it,
gone,
right?
we've
We
never
did.
stopped
Yeah.
going through the Industrial
Yeah.
Revolution, basically. So, we can look to those poets who went through something like this before. Um, I don't even know if I want to say to guide us. I'm not sure Eliot, and this is where I'm really out of my depth because I remember reading this once a while ago and I can't speak to it with a lot of knowledge, but somebody asked Eliot, you know, you're writing The Wasteland. Do you think like there's going to be a time when we stop having a wasteland, when things get better, essentially? And he said something along the lines of like, yeah, but it's not going to be for a while. It's not going to be anytime soon. So I'm wondering if you have some thoughts on like where we're heading, where can we find hope? Where do you find hope in all of this what feels like cataclysmic change?
Yeah. Well, I think part of it is turning to the personal. So to the community that is your family and your friends, and just the life force that we have. And um, so I have in Tick Tick Tick, I've got some love poems. I've got a lot of poems that are sort of tilting toward hope, because I feel like we have to. Even the last line of Continuum is, well, here's the last bit of it. It says, "Doesn't it seem like every day the world burns to the ground as we silence the alarm? So certain, somehow, tomorrow, persistent as fireweed." And it is because we just hold out hope. We just do. It's like it's how we function.
Yeah.
Um, to not have it, I don't know how you go on. And this administration will pass and there'll be another, and there'll hopefully be the things that have been destroyed that need to be in place will be rebuilt, and we'll muddle our way through. But I think this idea of leading with love and hope and finding who, what
Mhm.
you can believe in, what kind of where your spirit can rise is really important.
Yeah, and I think this is a good segue into the other poem that I wanted to discuss, which is a very similar theme here. Um, and oh my gosh, I'm so bad at remembering titles of poems. But I'm going to be pulling it up. So, because you were so kind as to send it to me so that I could, um, yes, Fishing. Simple title for a poem that's going to have quite a lot of depth and layers to it. Let's see. Now I'll share the screen again. Go ahead, and when you're ready, give that a read if you would.
Okay. Fishing. With fingertips, I peel off the skin, then debone soft salmon flesh, the hue of autumn leaves, the late afternoon sky. I recently read a poem about fishing, but it was really about desire, failure, and ultimately forgiveness, and it ended with praise. A friend tattoos seek joy on her wrist, challenges me to write joy in the season of venison and bitter greens. So I imagine myself in the blue of Greece, drinking Assortico and picking Xiphias off the bone, And then I become the fish swimming down the gullet. If you desire something for a long time, when it arrives, you feel relief and then grief. There have been 5 mass extinctions in the life of planet Earth. The shark has survived 4. I keep thinking of the Bob Dylan line, he not busy being born is busy dying, and wonder if busy is the issue here. I've spent my life on the pages of a planner, but now in the uncluttered space between days, I hear the faint sound of oars. Then imagine Jonah in a fishing trawler wrestling Hokusai-sized waves, the kind that minnow a mountain, and God sends him into the belly of a whale. I have drowned once and will again. Perhaps I've angered God. Perhaps God is the shark in this story, and survival is a Tao, is a mistral. Yet, that quick tisk of hope. Yet. The act of a tree shedding leaves is one of conservation, a gasp of exuberance before letting go, like a salmon dying after spawning.
All right, and I'm going to stop the share so we
Yeah.
can focus on our beautiful faces as well.
Yay.
Um, Part of why I wanted to talk to you about this poem is about the mass extinction. Forgive me, I'm aware of the extinction of the dinosaurs. Uh, could you fill us in on some of the other extinctions?
Yeah. So, well, there were a bunch of them. I watched. The reason I know this is I watched this documentary series called The Life on Our Planet" or something like. Yeah, Life on Our Planet, and it's Spielberg. It's a
Hmm.
Spielberg production, and it's just an amazing thing because you realize for me I thought, oh God, and I'd gone to the oh no, maybe I went no, I'd gone to the Grand Canyon, which I finally got to a few years ago.
Hmm.
And that too is this overwhelming where you realize this little moment in history is so minuscule. It's just a fleck of dust. And the same is true. I mean, we think we're killing the planet. I think the planet is going to just go, goodbye. We've got business, but it goes all the way down. I mean, the dinosaur was just the last extinction. Um,
Yeah.
there were 4 more before that, and oddly, the shark did survive for the last 4, and will probably survive this one. Um, it's kind of crazy. I mean, like in some cases, it the earth just went down to like these little molecules and then it
Hmm.
generated into this gorgeous, beautiful
Yeah.
world and then fell apart again. And then, without this one though is the first one that's been caused not by some external, yeah. This is suicide, but
Yeah. Well, I feel like you go to places like Alaska and Hawaii. I feel are the two places where I've really seen the record of the earth changing and evolving. So like my husband and I went to go see glaciers for our honeymoon. And you're looking at this ice and getting the tour guides to tell you like, oh, this is, from millions of years of being in snow packed on snow packed on snow. And then you can see like there was a place where we went where you could see the mile markers, like the glacier used to be here, and then you hike for a while, and then so like the glacier used to be here, hike for, and it's
oh,
like, and now
interesting.
this is where the glacier is now because it's been melting steadily. So like you're seeing how the planet changes over time and how much time it takes. And yeah, you get that sense of like we are very, very brief.
Yeah,
Um,
you're
on
very
Earth, we are
brief.
briefly beautiful to
Yeah.
quote um
Ocean Bong, yeah.
Ocean Bog. Yeah, names escape me just when I need them. They're very playful that way. So that what you said about the planet probably being okay and some of the animals probably continuing on. I mean, I do think you're probably right about that. Does that give you a sense of hope? I mean, we are people, we're part of this, whether we like it or not. So like, how do you feel about that, being a human being and not a shark?
Well, I think we've had a pretty good run, and we're not done yet.
Yes.
There's going to be many more generations before we're done, I think. But we're not done yet. But I think we've had a good run. And maybe there will be some other intelligent being. But yeah, I don't, that to me is not that's not a pessimistic view, really. I mean, it may
Yeah.
sound that way, but I don't mean it that way. I mean, it's just we've had a good run and we'll keep going for a bit longer. But in the scheme of things, our life on Earth is so, so minuscule.
Yeah. Do you think um do you think if more people read poetry like this and were aware of what was going on, do you think we'd change some of our actions?
I would hope so. You know,
Yeah.
I have a line in another poem that's a poem called that's in the book called Lookout that is in conversation with Eliot's Four Quartets. Um, and in it, I'm a bit more pessimistic in that one. I say no one's listening to the frenzy of poets, but other poets, you
Yeah.
know, like maybe that's true, but I don't think so. I gave a couple readings recently, where there were audiences that weren't poets. And I felt like, oh, they heard that, like
Yeah.
they came away with, oh, this is interesting with what poetry can say and can help. Um, I mean, think about what during the pandemic, how popular poetry suddenly became,
Yes.
right? Everybody was clutching for like, we need something to get us through. There's Schitt's Creek and there's poetry. To, and that's
That's
what we do. And where else do we go to we go to poetry when we're in grief. We go to poetry when we're when people are getting married, in joy. And
yes.
it's like in those in the big moments in our life, poetry is there. And this
Yeah.
is a big moment in the life of humanity,
Planet.
and the poets are
Yeah.
there. I mean, we are writing this stuff. We are writing this moment.
Yeah. You know,
Hopefully you'll reach people.
you talk about the pandemic. Certainly, I mean, I met with my poet group. We were writing all the time, and poetry was helping us and helping us connect. And we were definitely expressing ourselves. We had a lot to express through poetry. But I remember reading an article that maybe tracks sort of a spike in poetry to 9/11 of 2000 because people had a lot more anxiety and worries about the world and the future and um,
Yeah.
all kinds of things. And we've become a less religious society. People are turning away from organized religion. They need something else. So poetry is one of those places where people are trying to find meaning or express meaning or create meaning. And so uh, I think that's a good thing. I mean, one of the things that I feel, poets are always needing to justify our existence. I don't know if you find that to be true, but I feel like whenever I read a book of how to write poetry, it starts with like a chapter on why this is important, and I mean, for me, to me, the more I practice it, the more I'm like, oh my God, how could we not? Like, how can we not be writing about what's going on? How can we not be sharing with our friends? Like, of course we need this. maybe it doesn't bring in a lot of money, but it's like still so important. Um, and I just love what you said about the non-poets showing up, but still needing poetry. And you
Yeah.
know, I'm really curious, under what circumstances did you get non-poets to show up to read poetry or hear poetry?
Hear poetry. I know. Well, I actually, it was the first time I'd had an audience. I mean, they were friends and friends and friends and whatever that in a bookstore, but and a few strangers, but it was the first time where there wasn't a single poet in the audience. I mean, usually we're all there for each other, which is
Yeah.
great, which is great. But that was the first. Um, nice.
Wow.
I know.
Um, I'll just offer a reframe on that because the way that I like to think about it is as soon as somebody hears poetry, how can they not want to be a poet? So maybe that's why the poets all show up for other poets, because as soon as get bitten by it, you become one yourself. So maybe the cause and effect is reversed there. And
Yeah.
maybe some people walked away from that reading, Heidi, going home and starting to write in their journal too. Like, you don't know.
I think that does happen. I think it's also they're I mean, I always encounter people who say, "Oh, I don't like poetry." I'm
Mhm.
like that's a really strong response to something. Like,
Yeah.
well, it has to do with the way the education
Yes, agreed.
yeah,
Definitely
was
agreed. But
so bad. It was so bad. So it maybe still is bad.
I think
Hopefully
that's
not.
changing. And of course, there are a lot of poets now who have nothing else to do with their education except go into teaching. So I think a lot of us are
Yay.
kind of turning
Yeah.
things around.
Yeah.
This is off the subject of poetry, but because you are writing so much about nature and preserving it, among other things, I gotta ask your favorite place on planet Earth.
Um, well, so I live in Seattle,
Okay.
and um, Seattle is quite special because it's surrounded by mountains and water,
Mm,
both fresh water and Puget Sound, which is um, right outside my house. So
lovely.
that, yeah, so it's that's a hard question for me to answer because it's probably Mount Rainier, which is
Okay.
this massive mountain that we can see every day when it's a clear day. And it's
Mm.
just stunning. It's really a stunning mountain, old volcano. Uh, yeah, it's like, where do I want my ashes to go?
Okay, yeah.
It's either there at Puget or in Puget Sound, which is full of orcas. And I mean, I can see the orcas. They swim.
Wow.
I can see them from my porch. It's pretty,
Wow.
yeah, Seattle's pretty cool that way.
Yeah. How do you deal with the rain? Does that enhance your poetry? Because I
It
have a
makes
thing
things
about,
green. Makes
yeah.
things green. It's good. Yeah. And of course, yeah, you're inside.
Yes, if you're inside, it's especially nice, I can
Yeah.
imagine. Yeah, I've often thought like rain is a poet's weather. And I think it's because the rhythm, like it just creates that kind of musicality.
Yeah.
So of course, and like this morning, I
Yeah.
usually don't listen to the news and listen to podcasts too much, I think, but it was raining, so I turned everything off just so I could hear the rain because there's something really super
Oh.
special about that.
Oh.
I'll ask the other impossible to answer question, which is who are you reading who's influencing you right now?
Oh man. I have just of piles of books that I'm reading that's influencing me. Um, I picked up uh Fanny Howe's newest book. I don't know if it's out yet. I get because sometimes I do reviews or whatever. Anyways, I get galleys, and so I
Hmm.
have Fanny Howe's latest book, and it's interesting because what she did before she died, so this is her last book, is she went back to all her old work
Mm.
and rewrote it into like a book length poem.
Hmm.
But it's like reworking all of her. It's really interesting. It's like
Okay.
the artist Helen Frankenthaler. I don't know if you know Helen Frankenthaler. Anyway, she was abstract expressionist. And in her old age, she went back and redid some of her works over and over and over again, doing, screens of them, just like sometimes 100,
Wow.
just taking something that was, and so that to me is really interesting, that idea of seeing what you had written over a lifetime, seeing what you have painted over your lifetime, and
Hmm.
revisiting that with all of that history and what happens from that. So I picked that up and I'm starting that. The what's it called? I don't know. It's right behind me.
Yes. Well, that reminds me a little bit of what I understand of Leaves of Grass, going back and
Oh
going
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah. Great
yeah,
example.
reconfiguring. That's actually really good to know. I'm always a little worried when I'm working on a book. What if I change my mind years from now? What if I have a different perspective? What if I want to change that line and I can't because it's already been published? So hearing that kind of makes me realize like there's a little bit of hope that you can go back later on and maybe revisit certain things and
Yeah. I mean, that's not to say that you shouldn't kind of keep going forward, but
right.
I'm just so it's interesting that whole idea of revisiting and seeing something. I wrote poetry when I was a kid, and then I put it away for 40 years, and
Hmm.
now I'm a kid again. But when I came back to it, I there was a poem that had been published, and I found it,
Hmm.
and I submitted it to, there was a Washington State anthology, and so they published it, and so I got invited to read here and there, my poem in there. And it was a poem. So it was a poem I wrote when I was 18.
Oh,
And
wow.
then I came back to it again 40 years later. The same poem, but I now read it. It was a poem written about leaving home and being with
Hmm.
my family and realizing, it doesn't say this in the poem, but the perspective was capturing this moment of being in a family where before I, as the oldest child, left, and that would, the family would never have this moment again. And then
Hmm.
to come back to it as a parent and read it, um, and talk about it was so interesting. It is kind of that sort of layering of perspectives. And the poem still worked for me.
Yeah, you're saying this, and I'm thinking, I think this is Elliot from the quartet. Doesn't he say like, we'll go away and we'll come back to the same place where we began, but we'll know it for the first time?
Yeah. Well, and he talks a lot in the Four Quartets about, he has a belief. So this that the end is not the end, right?
Hmm.
So, and what he's saying by that is that, even if, I think what he's saying, that even if we die, even if, even if we manage to extinguish ourselves, um, it's not the end. So
Hmm.
The end
Yeah,
is
the
not
end
the
is
end.
not the
That's
the end.
what that's his line. The end is not the end is not the end. It's the beginning.
To die is something different from what we think and luckier, to quote
Yeah, I don't know.
Walt
I
Whitman.
don't know. But you know, that's
Well, I love that you are expressing that and sharing that feeling. Certainly, that can bring a certain level of peace or I don't know, encouragement, I want to say. Something that maybe defines words right now. Peace, encouragement, comfort, all of those things, a sense of possibility. And I really just want to say thank you for sharing all of that in your writing.
thank you.
And yeah, once more, the latest book is Tick, Tick, Tick by Heidi Seaborn, and it's out from Cornerstone. It's already available now, isn't it?
Yes,
Yes.
there it
Oh,
is.
wow. Okay, fabulous, fantastic. And Heidi, you're also the editor of Diode, I
No,
believe.
I'm the executive editor of the Adroit Journal.
Adroit. Why did I say Diode? It showed up too when you
Well, no, it has a
searched
lot of there's a lot
Adroit.
of the same letters. So, right?
Thank you. Thank you so much. Making
Yeah.
excuses for my faulty brain here. Um, yes, adroit diode. It was very adroit the way you worked that reframe into the conversation. You are quite adroit with your words and your vision. Heidi, it's such a pleasure to get to have these conversations with poets and poets like you. Thank you for your generosity, sharing your time and your thoughts. And I'm going to spend the next week revisiting The Wasteland. Um,
Yeah.
it's just really encouraged me to think about that some more and the quartets and cats. While I'm at it, I think I'll take a break from The Wasteland to just enjoy some angelical cats as well. Uh, yeah, I hope at some point I will get to meet you in person.
I
And
know, me too.
yeah,
I would
until we
love
meet
that.
again. Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you
thank you.
so
Thank you
much.
for such an interesting, stimulating conversation. I really enjoyed it.
It's been a pleasure.
Thanks.